Hello, world. Welcome to the Champions Coffee Podcast, where every week we have coffee with an education professional who is out there on the front lines championing students to be all that they absolutely can be. Today's guest is Liam Kenna, the Executive Officer of Wiltiyalu. Liam, welcome.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for the invite. It's really great to be here virtually. Unfortunately, we can't be in the same room yet.
One day.
One day. Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes, definitely. And mate, I'd love to kick off with an acknowledgement of country, if you could.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So here in Adelaide, the First Nations people, traditional custodians of the lands here are the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains. And so at the University of Adelaide, we pay our respects to their culture and their elders. But obviously, this acknowledgement, we'd like to apply it across Australia to all First Nations people. So we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose lands the University of Adelaide's campuses have built. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and the relationship to country of the Kaurna people. And we respect and value their past. We'd like to honour their leaders and elders, current, emerging, and past. And I personally would like to say a huge thank you to the Kaurna people for being so welcoming to me as a New South Welshman coming across. I've been lucky enough to raise my children here, learn, live, and laugh. So yeah, thank you, Ben. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. And again, thank you to the Kaurna people here in Adelaide, but First Nations people across Australia for their ongoing support and commitment to the higher education cause every day.
Yeah, great, mate. All right, thanks for that. So for everyone who's maybe watching this for the first time, and that would make sense because this is only episode 2, and we did episode 1 last night. I'm your host. My name is Ben Hallett, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Vygo. For those of you who just don't know what Vygo is a student support platform that helps educators connect their students to their support services. Tutors, mentors, counselors, what at Vygo we call champions. We're all about helping students connect into those when and where they need to be. And at Vygo, we really believe in celebrating the professionals who are making all of these different support services tick, which is why we're doing this podcast. And as I've already jumped the gun a little bit, Liam Kenna is our guest today. Now, Liam Kenna is the Executive Officer for Indigenous Research and Education at the Wiltiyalu Aboriginal Education Unit at the University of Adelaide. Liam is very passionate about equity and education, and through his role, he develops strategies to increase Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander participation in education, particularly pipeline pathways to higher degrees by research, Masters of Philosophy and PhDs that consider the whole ecosystem of student life from high school to a research degree. Liam is Wiltiyalu's lead in the current Vygo pilot, which we've been very fortunate to work with this year. And this is the first time a higher education Indigenous support team has taken its mentoring and its tutoring programs entirely online. And it's been really exciting here at the Vygo camp to be a part of this. And when we've already seen some really, really cool things happening with the platform, and particularly with the 2020 C word, COVID, everything that's going on. So Liam, welcome again, mate. Great to have you.
Yeah, it sounds quite a mouthful, when you throw it all out there like that. But yeah, it is, a wide-ranging, deep and wide role. But definitely, the relationship with Vygo has been nothing but steps forward in our experience so far. So we won't get too bogged down in the details, I suppose, of that. But yeah, absolutely, exciting nature of some of the innovation, that obviously COVID has brought the world to a standstill, but we have to keep moving forward. So some of those innovations and those opportunities have been really exciting. Obviously, counterbalanced by the human story on the other side.
Yeah, definitely. And mate, we are now officially 1/3 of our way into the podcast time, and we haven't even kicked off with the questions.
Well, I'm glad that we've kept to our promises to each other to way over time. But yeah, absolutely. Let's crack on.
And do you have your beverage, mate?
I do. Yes, thank you. It was, as I said, this would never have occurred without some brain juice, basically.
Yeah, great. What's your go-to coffee?
Double shot latte, but I'm very fussy. I need a little bit of sugar just to take the edge off, but I'm very fussy. Too much is too much. So, I have a complex order that, people probably dread when I walk up to the counter.
I was a barista for many years, and I know people like you.
I also spent some time behind the coffee machine, and I have empathy. Trust me, but it doesn't stop me ordering as I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mate, let's jump into the questions. So the first one would be, can you tell us a little bit more about the support activities that you're involved with the Wiltiala unit, and broader than that as well, and what support services and what does success look like in these services? What are they trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm. So I actually started here at Wiltiala as a student. I studied at the University of Adelaide as a mature age student, and actually came on board in my final year to undertake an internship placement, during which I did a bit of a research for the then Dean, now Pro Vice Chancellor of Indigenous Education. And during that time, I also signed up, put my hand up to take part in the mentoring program as a mentor. And so, that was one of the most important parts of my higher education journey, was really engaging with that, with that program and undertaking that project, obviously, because that has now led, several years later down the track to me still being here. And, still working towards those outcomes that we were working towards then. But, some of those achievements that we've made since then, I think, count very, very highly. Insofar as what do we do, the student services team, they provide tools and support for students as they come through. And that's, as we said earlier, the ecosystem of the whole student life is really encompassed by that team. So it's, as they enter, they enroll, then we do a student success plan and work all the way through until putting those people into a pipeline, that catchword there, towards a research, hopefully a research degree in our opinion, but obviously it's totally up to people to where they see themselves working in the future. I hope I answered the question there, Ben. I have to admit, I forgot the second part. I hope I've covered it.
No. I mean, I guess you kind of covered it. I mean, what I really loved about coming on it and being able to work with your team was the life cycle and the ecosystem approach that you were thinking about the student success in, and not only was this the first opportunity for Vygo to work with an Indigenous team, but it was also the first time that we got to do work with high school students who are being mentored by university students, which has been quite exciting as well. And what I really like about your team and the way you think about things is it's from the high school student who is considering higher education and navigating that and learning what would be the best pathway for them. And but once they're in, then it's the mentoring, it's the tutoring, it's the student support officers for that part of the journey, and it's very peer-to-peer related, which Vygo is all about. And then it's moving into the masters and the higher degrees, and then you're also thinking beyond as well. And I think that's really cool. I think we've talked about this before. Your unit very much thinks of itself as a microcosm of the whole. Whole university support services in one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's encapsulated, Ben. And, if you ever want a job spruiking us, you're more than welcome. But I think, we are not the standalone case in that all Aboriginal education units or Indigenous education units, Indigenous research units based in universities across the country, they do exactly the same. They perform the holistic wraparound services, that the provide almost on an individualized, almost siloed level, and our colleagues across the country provide those services, and amazing amount of support and everything, as you say, from encouraging high school students to identify their aspiration and really gun for it, and with programs that facilitate them to have a real chance of achieving their goals, all the way through, as you say, to successful undergrad, to hopefully postgrad, and then onwards, in our concept into the academia, into the academy. And hopefully what we'd like to do is retain many more Indigenous people with higher degrees onto the staff here. And that's really part of the concept, is that, that, as you mentioned earlier, ecosystem of development all the way through, where we can encourage people to see themselves working here at the uni, either at Wultuyalu, or we'd love to see more Indigenous people, pursuing their research passions across the university. And so as the uni comes slowly back, slowly on board towards the realization that Indigenous business and Indigenous research is all research and all business across the university, and that we can only be strengthened by, supporting and increasing and prioritizing that, those things will be in the air. That's what I like to think. And as we move to a more supportive environment, again, going back to that ecosystem catchword, I suppose, that those things will just play out. We'll have more First Nations language around campuses. We'll have more art that celebrates that. We have more policies that prioritize First Nations learning, those kind of things. Yeah. So across the uni, it's really impressive, the work that the Indigenous education units like us do. But I would have to say that, what we do is really, we really try and push for those innovations, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, and try and, bring some of our processes and some of our practices and some of those things that students engage with in, very much in the 21st century. And that's why we come looking for platforms and tools, I suppose, like Vygo. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really loved how agile your team is, both agile for testing new products and for deciding their worth and keeping or deleting. Like I love that side of it. And then the other part is I love how data heavy your team is as well. You guys are always running research on your student support services, and I think that's something that across the board, generally, student success teams can forget to be, picking up the data as it's happening and critically looking at their programs and the success of them.
Yeah, that's right. Both the Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Shane Hearn, and myself, we come from a public health background. And so, data-driven and evidence-based, methodologies and all of that was very much at the forefront of the mind. I think that's why we get along so well, because we both kind of think along those same tangential lines. And to be honest, the data as it was when we arrived and have been moving through the university's processes wasn't amazing. And so that's been part of it, is really zeroing in on which data is most important, what it tells us, and how we can shape our practice off the back of what is that data telling us. And that's both qualitative and quantitative. So we run a lot of surveys, lots of one-on-one engagement with the students. But also we look at the student-based data, which is success and enrollment and all those data bricks, which is kind of that's my area at the moment, which is combing through those and just seeing if we can see any trends that might indicate how we can improve or what we might need to be looking at in the future, especially with things like student load and as I say, as you say, I suppose what we've tried, what's stuck, and kind of what might need a little bit of a tweak and, a bit of improvement, or just some local context, I suppose, because we're always looking outwards for the best practice across Australia and globally. But obviously then you have to figure out what works for you in your scenario, your context and the people that you're trying to support. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. What works for some will not work for others.
Absolutely. Yeah. The cookie cutter approach is something that, not only can be not constructive, but can be outright detrimental, I think. And, if you try and apply the same here, there, and everywhere, and especially in the context of First Nations across Australia and across the world, you're running a pretty severe risk, I'd say, of everything falling over very quickly.
Yep, 100%. Well, I think we've accidentally ended up hitting on about 4 or 5 questions already, but, certainly, one of the typical questions we'd ask is, what life experience has motivated you? And I think your experience is very similar to my experience about why I got into the student success game, and being that we were mentors ourselves and, we had that experience and, we saw the transformational opportunity in that for both ourselves and for students. And then that inspired us to come back and to do it. And here we are many years later, still at it.
No, let's not put too fine a point on how many years later it is. But yeah, absolutely. You know, I count myself very lucky to have, I tried about 3 degrees before I landed on the one that I ended up finishing, thank God. I ended up in a double degree in social science and health science, which I absolutely loved. And, you know, I took that because it was as broad, really a canvas as I could find. And then slowly narrowed it down towards my, you know, true interest and passion as it emerged, which was Indigenous health. And the ties between education and health are so close, you know, they're basically intrinsically linked. So, you know, that's part of also my experience was finally getting to a degree that I love. But, you know, the 3 degrees prior to that, I was lucky enough to try one at 19, 22, and then in my late 20s, and then again onto this one. So I really feel like I experienced, you know, all the permutations of being a student, from that first try at 19 of not really being engaged and not really being sure really why I was there, and hence why I dropped out, all the way through to really wanting it for myself. And I think that was a real driving passion. And now being able to apply those skills in a real world everyday scenario has just been, you know, every day I would kind of count my blessings as I come to work, that I'm A, getting to apply the things that I learned, but B, hopefully making, you know, a slight tick on the dial as we work towards a fairer system. Yeah.
100%, mate. And that's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what this podcast is about, celebrating the champions like yourself who are championing students.
Yeah, and, well, you know, thanks for the acknowledgement, but right back at you. You know, I think the Vygo platform, and, you know, I would say the same back about the Vygo team, at the risk of this turning into a vicarious pump-up session. But, you know, the way that the team approaches everything, and the equity focus that I know that you have, as you say, from being a mentor yourself, I think really means that this working relationship, but also on a personal level, has really gone, you know, it's one of the better ones, Ben. I'll tell you that. I've had a range of experience, and yeah, can absolutely say that I think that those values really align. Yeah.
Oh, mate, thanks. Well, I'll quote that and put it on the website.
Yeah, feel free to send you a bill. Yeah,
great. Okay, well, I'm going to skip a bunch of questions because we are now at 17 minutes, but I'll let this one go to 20. How about that? We've got 3 minutes, so maybe rapid fire answers, mate.
Yes, sure. No worries.
Is there a particular student success story that you and your team have been involved with that you're quite proud of?
Well, rather than probably zeroing in on one single student, I would think, again, in that ecosystem, and I'll try and keep this brief, but we've been really focusing on supporting our honours students and, you know, building that pathway towards research. So I would count that as a real something that's really made an impact on those students. So we have fairly low numbers of honours students, Indigenous honours students, between kind of 5 and 10 any given year. And over the last couple of years, we've really focused some specialised support to them. So that's offering academic action packs, and that means that we can get them the specialised software and hardware that they need, IT things. We've set up a research cadet program where we have about 5 research cadets working on live research that we conduct here in Multiyalu. So we have 3 that are about to be hopefully published, again, knock on wood, in a systematic lit review, and then another 3 doing some qualitative data gathering. And then also we've, you know, until coronavirus struck, we were heading really well towards setting up a real international network. Last year, a personal pet project of mine was setting up a kind of a knowledge exchange sort of pathway with New Zealand, particularly the University of Otago. And so we managed to send 4 of our honours students over to actually the University of Auckland to take part in the Indigenous Higher Education Research Conference. And then I was lucky enough to accompany one of our PhD students to the Uni of Otago on the South Island, where we, you know, participated while I kind of cooked food and carried coffees while they had a master's writing retreat. And so that was really high engagement. They stayed in what's called a marae, which is like a community house kind of thing. And it was really fluid and amazing, and some really amazing Maori academics, including, I hope this is correct, the first female emeritus professor, Maori female emeritus professor, Professor Kyla Russell, and she was just incredible. So
Oh, awesome.
That, as in a nutshell, I suppose, really encapsulates also the work that we do across the board. Is that we're not just looking at this one point, but we engage with people. We look to see what they need, and then we try and really provide a platform, that people can. I often compare it to a buffet, which I probably have to come up with a more romantic metaphor, I suppose. But so people can pick and choose what they need at the time, rather than it being, as we said before, a cookie cutter set, a la carte menu.
I don't think anyone's had a buffet in 2020.
That is a good point. Not without a sneeze, very comprehensive sneeze protector.
Yeah, and I think one interesting soundbite in there that I think is a really sort of a staple lesson for anyone in the student success game is to champion students, we need to give them the platform to be successful on. We need to give them those initial pushes. And once they're there, a big part is then getting out of the way and getting them coffees and cooking food, letting them
just be a positive and, and supportive presence. But obviously people, overwhelmingly do it for themselves. So that's right. Give people the option and the support, and then step back. That's my approach.
100%, mate. Well, I'm going to skip another few.
Sorry, didn't do a very good job of answering that one.
Oh, good, mate. All right, final question for you. What advice or encouragement would you give a student about to begin their journey at university? And maybe I'll throw this to, with the Wiltialu unit as well.
Basically, I would just encourage everyone to engage as much as they can. The old adage, don't be too cool for school. Come down, say hi to people, say hi to your peers, come and see people in the centre. This goes not only for Indigenous students, but all students. There's a multitude of support services and ways to be connected with your peers and with groups of similarly minded people, from the sports outfits all the way through to, the drama and the music society. So I would definitely encourage people to really engage with their university. Take a piece of it with them when they leave, and you'll make friends for life. So I would definitely say that on the social side, and then I think the same piece of advice on the academic side is don't be afraid to put your hand up if you're feeling like you're not quite sure. You hear it every time in first tutes, but if you there are no stupid questions. If you have a question, definitely someone else in the room has the same question. So put your hand up, ask the question, be engaged, do the reading. Annoyingly, everything that my parents told me about university ended up being true. I thought I knew better than them in my first 3 attempts, but you get in proportionately you get out exactly what you tip in. So the more effort you put in, the more engaged you are, the more fulfilling you'll find it. And trust me, once you start getting those high distinctions, and they start rolling in, that's where you set your bar, and it's really exciting as you start to hone your skills towards the end of your degree to see those things kind of come through. I know, for myself, without wanting to big note, as I was rolling towards kind of consistently getting D's and HDs, I was so proud of myself. I had 2 young kids. I was working full time. This was my 4th crack at a degree, and I can definitely say from personal experience, it was absolutely something that you get used to it, and then that becomes your everyday. And so that's again not a short answer, but I would say just be aware, be engaged, and be open and friendly.
Yep, 100%. All right, mate. Well, we've come to the end of our 15-minute chat.
15 minutes, yeah.
And
the time in the top corner there.
Oh, good, mate. Liam, thanks so much for having coffee with me today. Appreciate that. And for sharing. No worries, mate. Thanks for sharing your stories, your advice, and your vision. And I think it's quite interesting and exciting. And I really can't wait to see where we get to together and where we go. And this has been episode 2 of the Champions Coffee podcast. Thank you for everyone who listens to this in the future. And if you'd like to stay updated and listen to more episodes and see more of the other guests that we will be bringing on in the coming weeks and months, just jump onto LinkedIn and follow the Vygo page, because we'll be posting it all from there. All right. Thank you, Liam. Have a good day, mate.
Thanks very much for the invite.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And